Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border. Good morning. Welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio, and looking forward to a fun show. We'll talk about that in just a minute. Do want to alert you that nighttime thoroughbreds are available tonight and tomorrow night, and important because, and we'll talk about it in a few, tomorrow night, the Santa Anita Labor Day, or I said that yesterday too. I'm whipping through summer, not Labor Day, Memorial Day card tomorrow is very, very good. And in fact, the 11th race, which is scheduled to go off 6 o'clock their time, that makes it 7, 8, 9 o'clock our time, is the Shoemaker Mile, a grade 1 event. They end their card tomorrow with 3 really nice graded events. And again, we'll talk about those a little bit later, but they'll be available here on the network via capitalotbbet.com as well. So Sunday and Monday nighttime thoroughbreds available. Mountaineer tonight, and I looked at that for the one sheet. So if you want to go over to the website, pull up the one sheet and follow along Mountaineer tonight. I have selections for that, as well as the tracks I'll be looking at this afternoon, Belmont and Saratoga, Belmont at Aqueduct and Churchill. So again, keep that in mind for tonight and tomorrow. Again, we're going to take a look at some stakes action as we typically do on a Sunday, but should be a fun day as well because we'll be joined in a few by our friend Anthony Stabile, the announcer now out at Finger Lakes, and we'll talk a little bit about their day tomorrow. Memorial Day at Finger Lakes tomorrow kicks off the stakes season with the George Barker, so we'll touch on the George Barker with Anthony and maybe a couple other races for Monday as well. And then kind of towards the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by our friend Jon White from Santa Anita. Looking forward to it. Earlier this week, it was announced Jon White will be retiring after a long career at Santa Anita out on the West Coast, started up in the Northwest. He's been a racing official at various tracks, worked for the DRF, been the morning line odds maker at Santa Anita for quite a while. He was on their television side for quite a while also, but earlier this week announced the retirement. I said, I got to get Jon in before the curtain comes down, before he pulls the curtain down. And albeit I'm sure he will still be involved in some fashion around and commenting and whatnot. But I said, I got to get him. And I thought, well, no better weekend than this big weekend, as the meet is kind of wrapping up. And it's a big weekend. So I thought we'd talk with Jon about some of the big races and just get him in here again before the retirement kicks in. So it should be a fun show. And then towards the end of the hour, we will be joined by our friends, our new friends at Black Bear. They had Black Bear Inn down in Waterville, but now they're our food vendor here at the Clubhouse Racebook. So we'll just give you a little trial by fire. I think their first weekend was Derby weekend, and I was out, in the front half all day on Derby Day, and folks were getting food, and there were thumbs up. So, and I've had the food as well. It's very good. And so we just wanted to give you a little heads up on our new food vendor here. If you'd like to come down, grab a little lunch or dinner, it's worth the trip. So we'll talk a little bit about that towards the end of the hour as well. So again, should be a fun Sunday. Let's jump into the stakes action. Kind of light on the stakes action yesterday. We had talked about it yesterday morning with Ellis Star. It was light, but there was action at plenty of the venues. We talked with Ellis about New York, Monmouth, Churchill. We'll look at those. And there was a couple of stakes down at Gulfstream as well. But again, for us up here, certainly, we are looking a couple of weeks down already. We have the laser vision on Belmont at Saratoga, and we are definitely looking forward to that. We talked a little bit about that yesterday as well with Mike McAdam, who has been up in Saratoga in the morning this week, a few mornings. So we caught up with him also, but looking forward to that. However, there was stakes action yesterday, and it was nice stakes action. It was kind of fun. The Belmont at the Big A feature was the Pennine Ridge, and again, it's in that subdivision. I always talk about liking quite a bit the 3-year-olds on the turf. I was going to take a shot against the Appleby runner, Legend of Time, with Risk Tolerance, career debut winner for Chad and Klarovich. That horse was a late scratch, was out on the track, and then was on sale. I didn't hear any subsequent follow-up on that, but late scratch. I mean, it, trotted off the course and everything, but just one of those where there was, I guess, some kind of minor issue that caused the late scratch. So I scratched into Legend of Time at that point. Legend of Time, certainly the betting public was tilted in that direction at 4-5. I had the other Chad right underneath, White Palomino. I thought Triple Espresso might be a little bit interesting. That one disappointed a little bit for Todd Pletcher, Triple Espresso, who went off as the second choice. Yeah, winds up last in the field of 6. But Legend of Time, looking for room here. You can see in the blue silks, looking for room. Joel Rosario finally gets something. It opens up. Will he get there in time? Going to have to catch White Palomino, the Chad horse. And, last Bob gets it done. It does wind up to be a chart margin of ahead for the 4-5 favorite. Third choice at 9-2, White Palomino winds up running second for the exacta. With those two, you got a little over $12. But it is Joel Rosario, Charlie Appleby, Godolphin, and Legend of Time getting it done as the favorite. And what was kind of a quick turnaround? Again, I took a little shot against because this was a horse that had shown some talent, clearly. I mean, came in with 4 wins and 6 career starts, but they weren't in the top level necessarily over in Europe. And so I was curious and out of the 5th place finish down at Churchill in the American turf behind Trickery, I had the horse right underneath, but I was taking a little shot with the horse that was the late scratch. So we move up into Legend of Time, and he validates what the betting public thought. And I did find it admittedly interesting that they did a relatively quick turnaround. They're coming back from the May 4th start down at Churchill to come back yesterday in the Pennine Ridge, but gets it done and gets it done nicely with that win right at the head bob at the wire that got you your 4-5 price there. The win price was $3.80. So over at Churchill, the feature was the Kirtana. I like Chop Chop. Betting public like Chop Chop. Chop Chop went off at 3-5. I thought Heavenly Appointed was a little bit interesting for a Graham Motion. That one disappointed a little bit. Went off at 11-1, but wound up 4th. But it wound up to be 3 horses coming out of the Bewitch getting it done. And again, Chop Chop had won that race. Chop Chop's the number 2 and looks pretty good here and is kind of putting away Vergara. But on the outside, in the silks of our friends at West Point, just continues to come. It is Atomic Blonde. Gets up, and the chart margin here will wind up to be half a length. 5-2 was the price as the second choice. Vergara was the third choice and wound up third. So it was the logicals in the mix there getting it done. But as I say, Chop Chop looked pretty good about the 16th pole, had kind of put Vergara away and had some distance on Atomic Blonde, but Atomic Blonde gets the momentum going and keeps going. It was Christophe Clement, Tyler Gaffleone, and again, our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds and Company getting it done. I saw Terry Finley down in the winner's circle there. So Terry down in Kentucky to accept the trophy and the accolades in the Kirtana. Nice win for Atomic Blonde, who is now 5 years old. This was the second start of the season. Again, she'd come out of a second in that Bewitch over at Keeneland and now gets the victory. Given these connections, wouldn't be surprised to see this one come up and join us up at Saratoga this summer. So we'll keep our eyes open for that. All right. We also had yesterday, we talked a little bit about this on the show in preview yesterday, the cliffhanger down at Monmouth. They were on the turf. Data Man looked pretty good coming out of the Henry Clark win at Laurel for Graham Motion. Graham, who's having a nice springtime. Data Man winds up going off as the second choice at 5-2. The favorite was Forever Super, who also was coming out of the Clark. Data Man had won the Clark. Forever Super ran third, but the betting public was a little more convinced on Forever Super at 9-5. Data Man at 5-2. Data Man here is going to be the number 5, however, and will get it done with a nice late run. There are no words at 13-1. The 2-horse, tough to run down, but Data Man goes by. The chart margin will be a length. There are no words holds on for second over Forever Super, the favorite, who got up there late to get third by a nose. But again, chart margin's a length. And it is Graham Motion getting it done with Data Man. Nice little 4-year-old runner. Now the 5th win in 7 career starts. So 5th win in 7 career starts and 2 for 2 this year. The Henry Clark and now this race. So we'll see where that one goes next. But we'll keep our eyes on Data Man off some good performances. All right, before I go to the break, do want to give you today's dark horse play of the day. Brought to you by our friends at the Dark Horse Mercantile in downtown Saratoga. Also, their sister store down the street, Impressions of Saratoga, both worth a visit on Broadway if you're in Saratoga. Dark Horse play of the day today. We're going to go to race number 6, Belmont at the Big A. Conditional claimers going 6. I'm going to go with number 4, Remember the Name, Linda Rice runner. 2 starts back, won an optional claimer starter allowance. A nice gutsy performance in a first start off a layoff performance. Had run early in January, then laid off to mid-April. So the comebacker was pretty good. Followed that up with a little bit of a troubled trip in similar company last time and ran 5th. Now they dropped down the claiming ladder, and it's owned in part by Linda as well. And I think, she's just clever where she spots the horses and realistic and whatnot. And I think the 3rd start back off a little bit of a layoff, getting this kind of a drop. We're looking at 6-1 on the morning line. And again, it's a Craig Milkowski morning line, not David Aragona. David Aragona on vacation. I saw some tweets. He's up in Maine. So I'm a Maine guy in the summer myself. I was looking at his tweets with envy. But the 6-1 on the morning line, if that holds, I think very generous. So dark horse play of the day for this Sunday afternoon. Belmont at the Big A, race number 6, horse number 4. Remember the Name. And again, thanks to our friends at the Dark Horse Mercantile in downtown Saratoga for sponsoring the Dark Horse Play of the Day during the Triple Crown season. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Anthony Stabile, a little bit later on, Jon White, a little bit after that. We'll also, again, update you on our new food vendor here at the Clubhouse Racebook and make your mouth water a little bit. All of that coming up right after this. Stay tuned. It's been referred to as possibly the best equine-themed gift shop on the planet. Impressions of Saratoga. Impressions of Saratoga, celebrating the Saratoga and equestrian lifestyles. It's your number 1 choice for Saratoga souvenirs, apparel, and gift shopping. We have gifts for the entire family, and we're pet-friendly too. Visit us online at impressionssaratoga.com or come on down. Impressions of Saratoga, 368 Broadway, downtown Saratoga.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to It's going to be a 3-horse photo finish to the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As promised before the break, joined now by our friend Anthony Stabile, track announcer up at the Finger Lakes. They have a nice Memorial Day card tomorrow, kicking off their stake season with the Barker. We'll talk about that and more. Anthony, good morning.
Morning, Seth. What's happening?
Not too much. Same old, same old. Nice weather here in our portion of upstate. I would expect some of the same out in the Rochester area with the Finger Lakes, and looking forward to the nice holiday card tomorrow. But before we do that, been talking to everybody this week. We'll watch the stretch run again here. Give us your thoughts on last week's Preakness. And you know, if you didn't I've been saying this right along. I did not have Seize the Gray. I ran second and third, top of the stretch. I thought we might go by, but no. He walked the dog and kept going at the top of the stretch. But I said, it was a fun story with the coach getting another Preakness. But what were your thoughts last week?
Yeah, Jamie Torres, too. That was a hell of a ride and a good idea. You know, he broke his maiden over the same conditions at Saratoga last year, and he just he let him roll from the rip. I have been pretty vocal on the fact that I think this is as mediocre a crop of 3-year-olds as I've ever seen. In fact, I'm willing to continuation bet it. It's the worst crop of 3-year-olds I've ever seen. They're mediocre at best. You know, when people start throwing the word great around, I think what separates good horses from great horses is the fact that Mystic Dan, who again had an absolutely brilliant trip, couldn't run down a horse that, to me, looked like as one turn a horse as you're ever going to see in your entire life. So I don't know if the track beat him. I don't know if the ride beat him. You know, Torres is right, because Brian Hernandez Jr. rarely does anything wrong. But yeah, when a horse like that stretches to a mile and 3/16 off 2 weeks in the, you know, off the pace in a mile and wide mile and 3/16, I think it's more an indictment on the rest than it is plaudits to the winners. With that said, the Belmont's in less than 2 weeks now, up at Saratoga, and I think it makes for a better betting race having all of this parity in the division.
That there is no question about that. And to your point, I've been thinking about this the last few days. Sierra Leone is obviously going to take a lot of action, but do you want how many times, if you look back during the prep season, how many favorites have actually won? I mean, it's just, to your point, they have not validated that. They haven't come back and kind of, so it's going to be very interesting in a couple of weeks, certainly, and it's going to be crazy around here. We're looking forward to it. But again, let's jump into tomorrow at the Finger Lakes, Memorial Day. Nice holiday action up at the Flakes, and we'll start with the feature, the Barker, 50,000 up for grabs, 6 furlongs the trip. Nice field in here, and you have a field of 9, and I think it's kind of fun. I pulled up a replay looking at last year's race, and last year's race is going to be won by number 8, Disco Dino, but running a close-up second. Look at the number 9, Flying Emperor. And Flying Emperor had this performance, this good second last year in the Barker, off a 5th place in the seasonal debut. Well, he's going to come in tomorrow off a 5th place this year. So I thought Flying Emperor tomorrow was a little bit interesting. But you have Rhymes Like Dimes coming in off a claim at the bottom down at Gulfstream. You have Writer's Regret coming up from the Naira circuit. Shipsational has been a very nice New York bred over the past few years. So I think it's a fun race. What did you see in the Barker?
Yeah, wide open race. Great way to kick off the stake season. 14 stakes. I like Writer's Regret. You know, we're going to have some moisture, it looks like, tomorrow in the track at the lakes. Unfortunately, looks like it's going to rain on the parade a little bit. But with that said, a lot of these horses are used to these wet tracks. And Writer's Regret, you mentioned, coming back from down at the Big A, and he's going back to a place where he's had an awful lot of success. He's hit the board, and he's hit the board here at Finger Lakes in 12 of the 16 tries. He's made over $118,000 doing so. There's some speed in here to set it up for him. Owen Garber will be looking for his first win earlier in the card in race 6 with a horse We Strike that I also like. We'll get to him in a bit. Owen's up-and-coming trainer down here, has a few horses, gets on his own horses. Him and his assistant, his quasi-assistant, Alyssa Scatino, Dominic's son, they've been together for a while. They're going to make the trip up with these two. And he scratched this horse out of a race here at Aqueduct last week. And now, to come to us at Finger Lakes. And I'm looking forward to seeing how he does in his return to a place, like I said, where he's had an awful lot of success. He doesn't mind a little moisture in the ground. He has enough tactical speed to be close enough early. And I think that'll bode well for him because Flying Emperor always has some speed. Jack and Bernie, who returns for Deborah Breed. Deborah and Ronnie Breed, Seth, these horses coming off these layoffs. Most people will be like, he's going to run him in a stakes race. He's got to go 6. He hasn't run since November. Good. The way these breed horses have been coming off the layoff, I don't want one under their belt. I want them fresh as a daisy. There's some speed in here. So I think Riders Regret can use his close to the horse on the outside too. Of course, Ladies Golden Guy. I think he's the one that dueled with the Emperor last week with Flying Emperor. So I would imagine that Riders Regret can work out the right kind of trip. Gets leading rider Caber Koa, who's hitting it close to 40%.
Oh, yeah.
That goes hand in hand. Yeah, that goes hand in hand with Michael Anthony Ferraro hitting it 43%. He rides a lot of horses for him, but K-Bar's our leading rider from last year at the Lakes. He's having a fantastic meet, and this horse, he'll put this horse in the right spot. That's the one thing I noticed. I've been up there 4 weeks now, and the one thing I notice is you start to figure the riders out a little bit better. K-Bar's always in the right place, and I would imagine that that's going to be extremely beneficial in the Barker tomorrow. Our first of 14 stakes at Finger Lakes for the year. I
had, as you mentioned, Kaibar, I was looking at that 40 jumps off the page. That's a pretty good start to the season, no question about it. And speaking of being there 4 weeks, I laughed the other day when I read your tweet. You're discovering things about the booth, and there are some pros and cons to opening the window.
Yes, I wrote that. It's funny. I'm sitting with two. I'm going to start heading up to Finger Lakes in a little while. I'm sitting with 2 of my best friends in the world, Phil and Ralph. And there was just a bee buzzing around me out here in the backyard. I said, I'm used to it. I almost got stung in the face Monday. So, and then Wednesday, I experienced my first Farmington thunderstorm. And right around the 5th race, one came rolling in. And boy, so our booth, the stewards, the placing judges in the booth are all the way up top, and you got to take a catwalk to the booth.
Yeah.
So it's got a little flexibility. Unlike myself, it has a little flexibility to it. So when that wind started rolling in, that booth was going up and down like MSG. Like MSG when Goodrow scored the overtime winner on Friday night. So, yeah, it was an interesting week. Mother Nature tested the big A on week 4 of Finger Lakes this year. I can tell you that.
I was laughing when I read the B tweet. All right, let's go a little earlier on the card. You said you play of the day, race number 4, maiden specials going 1.70 miles. How'd you see the 4th?
I don't want to brag too much, but the play of the day is hitting at about 50% with a positive ROI.
Oh, nice.
I guess it is bragging a little bit. I like 2 horses. I've done some of the work for Monday and did most of the work for Monday and Tuesday. I like 2 horses this week. Both play of the days might even be up already. And one of them's in the 4th race tomorrow. It's the Delaware Boys, who's making his 3rd start of the meet for Jonathan Buckley. He's one with a couple of horses that have come up from the Big A. Profitability won our first race in the meet. I can't remember who the second winner was. So this was, I've been waiting for him to stretch this horse out. We have 2 mile and 70-yard races tomorrow. They're the first 2 two-turn races of the meet, with races 3 and 4, the first 2 legs of the pick 6. This horse got a very curious ride in his lone start of the mile. Kendrick, who looked like he was me on the speed, just kind of like dropped this horse back to last, and he just didn't respond. But he still ran one of the faster figures of his career. I think he's by cloud computing out of a Street Sense mare. That tells me 2 turns should be right in his wheelhouse. I think he's going to get to the top from the inside. I think it also helps that his best buyer speed figure came with some moisture in the ground. So I think he gets to the top from the rail with Kevin Navarro, who rode him last time. He showed speed in the second start up there, sprinting. Now he's going to go from 6. It was one of our first 6 furlong races 2 weeks ago. He's going to go from 6 to a mile and 70. And I think from the rail, he protects and goes. There's another horse in here, Creation of Adam, number 5, who's your 3-2 morning line favorite. He could go. But I'm wondering if John Delisle Jr. for Chris Englehart says, you know what, let the inside horse go. He has position on me, and I think the Delaware boys can walk the dog on the 4th tomorrow. So I'll pick 5.
Very good. And I just checked, and on our website, on the tip sheet page, we do have your play of the day up for both tomorrow and Tuesday already. So folks can check that out also. Also, tomorrow, 6th race, another maiden special event. Again, 3/4 of a mile. How did you see race number 6?
We were talking about Owen Garber earlier. I think Owen has a chance to win a couple of races tomorrow. This could be his first career win. Restrike is a tale of 2 cities, his 2 races. First race at Penn National was basically in tropical storm conditions. The winds were gusting at like 50 miles an hour. I don't know how they ran the race. And, first-time starter, still fairly young. He hadn't even turned 3 at that point. But he was just all over the place. He didn't have a great start, but he kept running. And then I think it was overcompensation from Raylu last time, and he dueled on the front end with 3 others. I think this is kind of like the 3 Little Bears. Too hot, too cold. I think this porridge is just right tomorrow. Another Kevin Navarro horse I like. I think Kevin will get this horse somewhere in mid-pack and launch one run as opposed to being out the back or dueling to the lead. So I figure he'll be in mid-pack tomorrow. He's going to be a good price. He's by Klimt out of an fleet Alex Mayer. Some moisture in the ground wouldn't hurt his cause, I can tell you that. So I like restriking the 6th tomorrow.
I like it. Anthony, as always, appreciate the visit and the conversation. Have a fun week up at the Flakes, and we'll talk again.
I'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Seth. Good luck, everyone.
Sounds good. Anthony Stabile, again, track announcer at the Finger Lakes. And, you can catch his play of the day over on the website. Easiest way to find it, if you click on, the handicapping link at the top of the page, then go to handicapper support. There's a little side menu. Click on tip sheet, and you can find all kinds of tip sheets there. But Anthony's play of the day for tomorrow and Tuesday are both up already there. All right, we'll take a break. As promised, we'll be joined by our friend Jon White. Announced retirement earlier this week, and I knew we had to catch up to him. And with a big weekend, this is a great time to talk to Jon a little bit about what's coming up next couple of days at Santa Anita and more. And again, a little bit later on, our friends at the Black Bear, now the food vendor here at the Clubhouse Racebook, we'll catch up with them a little bit later on as well. All of that when Racing Across America continues on this Sunday morning. Stay tuned.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Oops, my bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back to Racing Across America. As I noted a couple of times already in the show, happy to be joined now by our friend Jon White, longtime guest here on the program when we want to talk some Southern California racing. And when the news came out earlier this week that Jon will be retiring, I knew we had to have him on before he brought down the curtain on the longtime career. And I thought no better time than this weekend with a great weekend of racing at Santa Anita. And again, happy to have Jon join us with a long career that started up in the Northwest and included the Daily Racing Forum and was in the official's office at various racetracks, has been at Santa Anita now a long time. Jon, good morning. And again, congratulations on a great career.
Good morning, Seth. Well, thank you very much.
And I saw when I read about the retirement that part of it is maybe travel around and put some new tracks on the, check mark some new tracks. Any chance we'll see you up at Saratoga?
Well, I certainly would think at some point, yes, because that has been a bucket list of mine. I've never been there. In fact, for years I carried around in my wallet a little card that a prominent owner and breeder had given me to say if I ever got to Saratoga, I could stay with him. Now, unfortunately, this man has long passed away, but it was a great thrill of mine that he even invited me to stay with him. His name, Fred Hooper.
Oh, I would keep that card for a while myself. That's great. Well, if you do make it up to Saratoga, certainly alert us and we'll have you come in and sit in with us live on the backstretch some morning. We'd love to have you there. But again, when I read the news, I was envious but a little sad because you've been one of my favorite guests over the years and you bring a nice historical perspective and it's just been fun talking to you over the years and certainly going to be fun talking to you this morning as well about a really nice weekend, obviously, as Memorial Day typically is out in Southern California. But before we do that, I also pulled up your online column for this week where you had a little review of the Preakness, and we're going to take a look at the Preakness stretch run here. Give us some of your thoughts on Seize the Gray. And I've said it now a couple of times. I said it already this morning with another guest. I did not use Seize the Gray. I had Catching Freedom over Mystic Dan at the top of the stretch. I thought, I got a shot here. And then he had walked the dog, Seize the Gray, so he had plenty left in the stretch. And reading your column, I was kind of in the same camp you were. Going into about the far turn, I thought, he might be tough to reel in. And that's the way it worked out. So I didn't have him, but like you, I think, and many people who kind of follow the sport or write about the sport, it was a great story with Wayne Lukas and the jockey as well. So give us some of your thoughts on last week's Preakness.
Well, Wayne Lukas just continues to amaze me. I mean, I remember, and it shows you how long I've been in this game, but you go all the way back to when I met Wayne Lukas in 1981. And I can remember that morning in the spring of 1981, walking to his barn, which I would end up having to go to his barn pretty much every day for 6 years because he was such a powerhouse in those days. And when I went there, I had a number of horses that I introduced myself, said I'm the new columnist and reporter for the Racing Forum here. There were two of us on the beat, Mike Martin, who would go on to a distinguished career with the California Horse Racing Board. But I asked him about 3, 4, 5 horses that I had on my list and then started to walk away. And then Wayne said, can you do me a favor? And I said, well, yes. And he said, please don't write about how well manicured our barn is here and everything. He says, I'm already got a fair amount of jealousy, and I just assume not have that in there to make people even more jealous of us. And to show you how sharp he was, there wasn't any question that I was going to include that in what I wrote. That's how sharp Wayne Lukas is, because I'm telling you, Seth, I'd never been to a barn like that in my life. It was the most immaculately, just every little detail. It was so beautifully raked in the flowers. And I mean, I hadn't been to an amusement park that was as nice as this place. I mean, and when you compared it to other barns, where many of the barns and I've been to barns all over the country in the Pacific Northwest, Louisiana Downs. I've been to Keystone, which again, Seth, it shows you how old I am. When you've been to a track and it's had several names since I was at that track, Keystone, Philadelphia Park, and Park. But Louis I was at, and I mean all over the country. And a lot of barns you'd go to, there would be flies around and some horse manure and this type of thing. You go to the Lucas barn, and I mean, it was like you didn't even want to step around there to make your footprint, because you'd be spoiling the beautifully manicured barn. But I realized later that Lucas not only didn't want that in the column, but he was also testing me, because he had just met me and he wanted to see if I would pass the test. And the test was whether he could trust me, because by asking me not to write that, if I wrote it, then he would know that he couldn't trust me to say, I don't want you to write this, so don't do it. In other words, it's off the record.
Yeah.
And throughout my entire writing and broadcasting career, when somebody told me something and said it was off the record, it stayed off the record. So, for instance, I was standing with Bob Baffert one morning at Santa Anita, and HRTV was pretty new. I was the first person on air commentator in the history of HRTV when it got off the ground. And I was standing with Mr. Baffert one morning, and he says, vindication's out of the Kentucky Derby. And I said, can I broadcast that? And he said, yes, because it's true. So yes. And I walked about, 15, 20 steps right over into the HRTV studios, came on the air and broke the fact that the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner and the Kentucky Derby favorite would be out of the Kentucky Derby. That was early in his 3-year-old year. So, but I mean, so many memories of Mr. Lucas come flooding back. And what he has done is just absolutely extraordinary. To become the oldest trainer to win a Triple Crown race. Think of that, at the age of 88. And I thought, you know what? How old was Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons, the great Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons, when he won his final Triple Crown race? And Fitzsimmons, his final win in a Triple Crown race was with the great Bold Ruler in 1957. And of course, Bold Ruler would go on to sire Secretariat, who swept the Triple Crown in 1973. When Bold Ruler won the Preakness for Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons, he was a spry 83, which, and I remember, how old he was. I was only 2 in 1957, but I learned so much about Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons, and think of that for Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons, that he held that record for so long as the guy that had won the most Triple Crown races. It stood for 56 years from Bold Ruler until, guess who it was that broke Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons' record? It was none other than T. Wayne Lucas when he won with Oxbow. So, this is just amazing that Mr. Lucas has been.
And you threw Baffert into the conversation as well. And when I read your column, this is something I hadn't even thought about, but it all made sense. You talked about Lucas and Baffert both having started their career on the quarter horse side of things. And so the 2-week turnaround for those guys was kind of the way it was done then. You talked about the futurities and the trials for the futurities, and you'd have to have your horse kind of ready in the trial and then just a quick turnaround to be ready for the big race. And I hadn't even thought about that before, but certainly having that on the resume for those two guys, I would think has to have played into their success during the Triple Crown over the years.
No question about it. In fact, Baffert's the one that first brought that up because he'd had so much success with his Kentucky Derby horses coming back into the Preakness 2 weeks later. And he explained, he said, It's not as a foreign situation to me as it is for some of these thoroughbred guys, because in the quarter horse world, it was a 1 week turnaround, not 2. It was a 1 week turnaround. And you had to qualify in, let's say, for a fraternity or a derby. And then you had to come back in a week and try to get the big money.
And again, I hadn't even thought about that until you wrote it, but then it all kind of comes together and makes sense, certainly. So yeah, it was, as I say, a great storyline, and it's been fun to see, tweets and pictures of Wayne Lukas, and I'm amazed when I watch. He still gets up on the horse in the morning. It's like, wow, this is incredible. And again, I put a little exclamation point on the day. Even if you didn't have Seize the Gray, you had to appreciate the storyline, and it adds now to the story leading into, for those of us up here in upstate New York, we're looking forward to a couple of weeks, Belmont at Saratoga, but it adds to the storyline leading into the final leg of the Triple Crown as well.
By the way, one other quick Lukas tidbit. When I first went into television at Santa Anita in 1993, we spent, before the start of the fall oak tree meeting, putting together a number of little features for the simulcast program, and they were called Great Moments. And myself and Kurt Hoover on a cart and with a cameraman would go around to various trainers and get some sound bites about their top horses, like Whittingham and Mandela, a lot of these trainers like that. And one of them, of course, would be Wayne Lukas. And most of the trainers trying to get them, to say something that would be a good soundbite wasn't all that easy. That wasn't a strength of Charlie Whittingham, I can tell you. But we go over to the Lukas barn, and Kurt says, well, you know him well. You've been covering him for so many years. You probably should handle this. And I said, fine. So we mic'd up Lukas. I asked him, I said, when you have a few minutes, can we get some sound bites from you? And he said, sure. And so he comes over, we mic him up. And so I was going to ask about, a number of his horses just to get a 20-second, 30-second, 40-second sound bite from him. And so the first one I said, I'm here with Wayne Lukas, and what do you remember about Land of Lucy? And he goes, John, you don't have to ask me that much. Just give me the horse name. So, well, the rest of those guys, it was kind of like pulling teeth. Lukas, I mean, we started the first one on Land of Lucy, and he goes, cut. Now, how many trainers are going to say cut like he's the director? And so then, I would just say Land of Lucy, and then I'd say Althea, and then just whatever horse. And they were perfect sound bites. I mean, that's Lukas. I mean, even in something like that, it was complete perfection.
And you're alluding to it, but I think newer fans don't realize he was for years and years and years, he was a California-based guy. And then he became kind of the first, I think he's recognized as at least one of the first that branched out around the country. And then, he had that powerhouse a stable of assistant trainers, Todd Pletcher and Dallas Stewart and Kieran, and they were out there manning his other strings across the country. And as I say, he was one of the first guys really known to do that.
Well, he was basically the second. The first was Jack Van Berg.
Okay, yeah.
In the 1970s. And Van Berg, and it was tough on Van Berg when he did it because they'd put a rule in and they ended up doing away with the rule, or otherwise Lukas would have 8 billion frequent flyer miles. But like around 1974, 5, 6 in there, when Van Berg was the top trainer in the country, a number of victories, they stipulated that you had to have X amount of time on the ground at a track to be credited with the wins for your total for the year. And so Van Berg was spending, hours and hours and miles getting on planes. By the time, excuse me, by the time that Lukas came along, and what Lukas did was take the Van Berg blueprint and take it to a much higher level. And fortunately for Lukas, he didn't have to abide by that rule, and so he was getting credited with all those wins with stables in New York and Kentucky and all over the place. So it's an amazing, what Lucas has accomplished is just beyond amazing. I mean, it truly is. And, you know, another part about Lucas is through the years, I mean, he's had his ups and downs, and there have been so many times that his, you know, particularly when he's had prominent owners either leave racing because they died or they just decided to get out of racing. And, you know, a big part of training is having top clients. And, you know, Lucas might struggle for a little bit, and people think, you know, they're about ready to say, well, that's it for him. And I mean, this guy's made more comebacks than like any trainer in history. And here we are, Seth, in 2024, and he's still doing it.
Yeah, no, it's like I say, to see him up on the horse in the morning is just amazing. All right, John, we have a few minutes left, but let's touch on, again, tomorrow, really nice Memorial Day card. I will mention the Santa Margarita today with Adair Manor coming off the win in the Apple Blossom. She looks really good in there. She's going to be worth watching this afternoon. But tomorrow, really nice action. We'll start with the Shoemaker Mile, Grade 1 event, a mile on the grass tomorrow afternoon. And I pulled up a replay of the Frank Kilroe. We're going to see number 6, De Jure, win. Number 2, Easter will run second. They're both in the mix tomorrow. But it's an interesting group in here. Wesley Ward has shipped in a couple. Dominican Pioneer and Fantastic again, both for Wesley Ward. Conclude has a pretty good record for Phil D'Amato, certainly. Again, interesting group in here for the Shoemaker Mile tomorrow. How'd you see it?
Well, it's an outstanding race. It's a true Grade 1. There's no doubt about that. And I think there were 3 major players in the race, and they are De Jure coming off that win in the Kilroe Mile. And by the way, I'm so glad that this is a big race because it honors a man that was a giant in horse racing, not only in California, but even on the East Coast. I mean, this guy had learned at the foot of the top racing officials in the East, and he really put California racing on the map. And everyone around here called him Mr. Kilroe, and he deserved it. And unfortunately, I hear some young people today call this the Kilroy Mile because they don't even know about Mr. Kilroe. So I'm glad, though, we still have that race. And De Jure looked very good in it. It's kind of a quirky thing. You know, it isn't like Baffert's had a flock of good turf horses through the years, but this is certainly an outstanding turf runner for sure. And Easter in that race did not have the best of trips, and certainly is capable of turning the tables in this race. So he's another major player. And the horse I ended up actually picking in the race, I didn't make him the morning line favorite. I made De Jure the slight 3-1 morning line favorite, but I thought Johans is very interesting here. This is a real up-and-comer, I think, in the national male turf division. And he's got so much talent, and I think the ceiling is so high for him, and he's never lost when racing on the turf at Santa Anita. He's 4 for 4. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up being 5 for 5 after this race. But even beyond those 3 major players, as you pointed out, there's plenty of others in here with the credentials to pull off the victory. So it's a very competitive group. But I think those are the big 3: De Jure, Johans, and Easter.
Yeah, Johan, with the seasonal debut off a very long layoff, may have come back as an improved 4-year-old. Definitely worth a look in there. All right, the Hollywood Gold Cup, race number 10 tomorrow. Grade 2 event, a couple $100,000 up for grabs and 1.25 miles. I pulled up a replay of the Californian. We'll watch number 5, Mr. Fisk, get it done in here. Judge Miller will run second. They're both in tomorrow. Subsanador, I think, is a little bit interesting for Mandela, a South American runner that's had a couple of starts in the United States so far. I thought they were promising. Mixto, I should mention, runs third in that replay we just watched. So, again, the top 3 from that Californian. And Reincarnate, always interesting for Bob Baffert. Ashcroft, I think, could be a player off the recent win streak. What were your thoughts on the Hollywood Gold Cup?
Well, my first thought is a little sadness because this used to be one of the top races in the entire country, and it's now slipped to Grade 2 status, since the demise of Hollywood Park. I mean, this is a race that for its first running was won by none other than Seabiscuit, for Pete's sake. And, Affirmed won this race in 1979, carrying 132 pounds as a 4-year-old. I mean, this race is so steeped in history. So it's just kind of sad to see where we are in 2024 with the Hollywood Gold Cup. Like the 11th race, I made the slight morning line favorite a Bob Baffert trainee, and that is Mr. Fisk, because he's coming off that really clear-cut win in the Californian. But like the Shoemaker Mile, I'm going against who I made the morning line favorite with my selections, and that is I am going with Subsanador. I had $100 to win on him in the Santa Anita handicap at 22-1. And boy, going into the far turn, I thought, wow, I got a really good chance here. At the top of the stretch, I thought, wow, I really got a good chance here. At the 8th pole, I thought, wow, I really got a good chance here. And that Newgate comes on with the great Frankie Dettori and just nails me right in the shadow of the wire. So that was a brutal defeat for me this year. But one reason I went with him for $100 is he come off a clunker in his United States debut, but I knew how high Jon Sadler, the trainer, was on this horse. He had a terrific record in South America. And Seth, I don't know if you remember a horse that Mandela had back in the day called Gentleman. But Mandela had told me that he thought Gentleman, before he ran in this country, might be one of the best horses he'd ever trained. And in his first start in this country, Gentleman ran up the track in a race that was won by Dramatic Gold. And I thought, wow, how can Richard Mandela be that wrong about a horse? Well, he wasn't. It was just a case where the South American horse needed a little time to acclimate to North American racing. And even horses like Bayakoa, it took Bayakoa a while for Ron McAnally before she became the Bayakoa that we knew and would end up in the Hall of Fame. So that's always something in my mind when we deal with these South Americans. Don't judge them too harshly for their first start or 2 or 3 in this country. And that's why at the odds of 22-1, I thought, you know what, this is worth maybe $100 bet. And I mentioned Gentleman, ironically, Subsanador was privately purchased out of that race and it switched trainers and now is in the hands of Richard Mandela. And if you talk about a guy that's had tremendous success with South American horses through the years, it's Richard Mandela. So I think Subsanador could end up being really one of the top older horses in the country for sure. I think the big cap was just kind of a glimpse of what we might be seeing from him. So he is my top pick in the race, but it's a good race. There's no question about it. This Judge Miller is quite intriguing. He's a full brother to Clairiere, the multiple Grade 1 stakes winner. And I know how high Mark Glatt has been on Judge Miller from day one. And, he was the heavy favorite in the Californian. He was 3-10. And I think he can run better than that. He is adding blinkers for this race, and I won't be surprised if he ends up running better. Remember, I said Subsanador got beat by Dettori in the Santa Anita handicap. Well, guess who's riding Judge Miller? It is Frankie Dettori. So Subsanador, if he gets beat, he's going to go, that darn Dettori did it to me again if it happens to be Judge Miller who gets the win.
Speaking of retirements, Frankie Dettori made the good move to postpone the retirement the way he's been riding since he announced first, and then to say, maybe I'll winter in Southern California. And you mentioned the Hollywood Gold Cup and how it doesn't quite have the luster it used to. But I like that they kept the name just to kind of honor the memory of Hollywood Park. All right, John, I have about a minute left here to take a look at the Gamely. I pulled up a replay of the American Oaks. We're going to watch number 2, Anisette, get it done. That was her last race. That was end of December. Now she's going to come back for her 4-year-old debut. But Nadette off the Wilshire win. A couple of shippers are interesting. Will Walden elects to ship in Olivia Maralda. And Forever After All comes in for Brendan Walsh. Linda's Gift brings in a little bit of a win streak. Again, another interesting race. Your thoughts in the game, Lee?
Well, you used the word interesting, and I think that hits the nail on the head there, Seth. This really is very interesting. For instance, you mentioned Olivia Miralda. She faced some really tough competition in Europe and had a troubled trip in her United States debut and ran big to finish second at Keeneland, and she gets Pratt, so that's a big plus. She's very dangerous in this race, I think. Ruby Nell is extremely talented. You know how talented? Richard Mandela actually considered running her in the Shoemaker Mile. Ooh. So keep that in mind. He actually was thinking about running her against the boys, and she's a $1.2 million auction purchase. A lot of talent there. She's a major player for sure. And Linda's gift for Mandela is in razor sharp form. Now, this is a tougher competition and not her best game. She's better going longer, but still she's on top of her game. Excuse me. I'm going to go with Anisette. I think this is a supremely talented filly. She's capable of firing fresh, which she showed in her United States debut. Her United States debut was only an allowance race, but she was a 3-year-old filly in the spring running against her elders. And the way she rocketed home that day really was, it portended what would be just a really very successful 2024 campaign for her, including grade 1 wins in the Del Mar Oaks and the American Oaks. So I think she's the one to beat, but boy, this is really a deep field, and you said the word, Seth, and I think it's the perfect word for the Gamely this year. Interesting. By the way, one note about Gamely, not only was she an outstanding female thoroughbred in her own right and would go on to the Hall of Fame, but one of her best performances was in the 1968 Californian against the boys when she finished second to the legendary Dr. Fager.
Oh, that's not a bad check mark on the resume, certainly. John, we got to go, but again, congratulations on a great career. Envious of you moving on to retirement and maybe bouncing around and visiting some tracks around the country, and I'm sure doing some other fun things. We will certainly be keeping our eyes on the remainder of the Santa Anita meet. And as I say, when the announcement came out, I knew I had to get you in, and no better time than this big weekend at Santa Anita. And it's been another fun Jon White conversation, demonstrating why you've been one of my favorite guests throughout the years. A little history, a little preview, a little review. It's been a lot of fun. But again, congratulations, and really appreciate the visits over the years.
Thanks so much, Seth. I really appreciate the kind words.
All right, Jon White from Santa Anita Park. Again, when he made the announcement, knew we had to have him on, and he lived up to it, as always, with the Jon White visit. All right, we'll take our last break. When we come back, again, our friends from the Black Bear, they're our new food vendor here at the Clubhouse Racebook. We'll give you a little update there so you can decide where you're going to come for lunch today. All of that right after this. Stay tuned.
No matter where in the world you are, the excitement of wagering on horse racing is just a click away. You'll get live streaming, past performances, race replays, our virtual tote board, analysis and selections from professional handicappers, a simple, safe, and secure wagering platform, and best of all, you get track prices. CapitalOTBBet.com. Bet any place, anytime at CapitalOTBBet.com. And be sure to download our new mobile app from the iTunes Store or Google Play.
It only takes one upset to make history, and now you can be part of Saratoga's long tradition at the Dark Horse Mercantile. The Dark Horse Mercantile offers a carefully curated selection of clothing, gifts, and home decor, from one-of-a-kind vintage racing memorabilia to select brands like Barber and Under Armour, as well as exclusive Dark Horse branded merchandise. So celebrate the Dark Horse in all of us at the Dark Horse Mercantile, downtown Saratoga, where the smart bet is always the Dark Horse.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Welcome back. As promised before the break, we'll make your mouth water, and we certainly will. We are joined now by Tim Delisle of Black Bear. They originally, and still down in Waterville, but they're now the food vendor here at the Clubhouse Racebook and have been since, I guess, about Derby weekend, which was trial by fire, I said earlier, but you guys seem to have done a very good job. Tim, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good.
Awesome.
And give us how it's been so far. As I say, trial by fire kind of kicking off right at Derby weekend, and I was out in the front half there, and people were running around serving food, but there was a lot of thumbs up. I've tried the food myself. It is very good, but give us how it's been here at the Racebook so far.
Yeah, it's been something. It's been interesting. Let's say that. We opened on April 24th. Our scheduled date was going to be June 1st, so we moved it up a little bit. Definitely trial by fire, but it's nothing that we've never accomplished before. We do a lot of catering and stuff like that, so we just kind of used what we had, and it worked out well. It worked out well so far.
Say, everybody had smiles on their faces as I was looking around at the people enjoying the food, including me. I have tried a few of the dishes and have enjoyed them quite a bit. Talk a little bit about the menu. First, let's go. What do we have here? Let's look.
Sure. We got our now. This is a new item. We've always had a Reuben on our menu, but this is now officially called the Chief's Reuben. It's a smoked corned beef that we smoke for 10 hours, and then we boil it in a brine. It's super tender, super succulent. The chief of my fire department called me on the phone. He goes, "Listen, this has to go on the menu." He goes, I don't want credit. He goes, "But you have to name it after me." So it's not even on the menu at the Waterville location. It's Albany only right now. And then the next item we have our Grizzly Burger, which was a staple since day one in Waterville. 8-ounce burger, bacon, cheddar cheese, fried egg on it. Again, fresh cut fries. We do everything fresh. And then we have our award-winning chicken wings. We've won a bunch of awards for all of our different chicken wing sauces, which we don't have every one of them here yet. But within the next month, we're going to have a full menu here, and we'll have all that available.
Talk a little bit about the menu in whole.
The menu in whole is still, it's always been a work in progress. We've been in business 19 years, and each year and a half, we try to knock off stuff that doesn't really sell, and then we kind of create new stuff and put it on. So, it's been working well so far.
I'm a French dip guy. I had the French dip was my first foray onto the menu, and thumbs up there.
Awesome.
So again, everything I've tried has been very good. And I'm typically sitting in here in the afternoon doing the afternoon handicapping show. It's like, oh, they ordered lunch. There's something smells really good, and they're out there eating. And so the guys in the control room have been enjoying the Black Bear food.
That's awesome.
As well. Give us your hours.
So right now we're open Wednesday to Sunday. We're opening at 11:30 in the morning, and we're closing at 7:30. That eventually will be expanding. We would like to be open 7 days a week. We're going to still be open for lunch, and we'd like to be open till 10 a.m.
And I said earlier, and this is absolutely true, come on down, watch the races. And when you come here on the weekends, our TVs on the far side are tuned to sports, so you can enjoy the sports as well. But grab a little lunch, grab a little dinner. But for folks who are out there who maybe think, can I just pop in and grab some lunch? And, maybe somebody working on Central Avenue and not be related to the races. People can just come in whenever they want to grab lunch as well.
Absolutely. We're open for lunch. We're open for dinner. We do to-go. You can also come in and sit down. We have 16 tables, plenty of seating, plenty of cold beer, soft drinks and whatnot. So come on in, give it a try for sure.
What's your background in the restaurant industry?
Oh, God. I started working in restaurants at 14 years old.
Really?
Yep. Washing dishes, and I worked my way up. Got out of the kitchen for a little while, and then purchased a bar at 24 years old and got back into it. So, yeah, it's been 19 years of being in the kitchen again and doing quite well with it.
So, again, been relatively new here. We're, about a month in at this point.
Yep.
And, again, we invite you to come down. The food is excellent. Stop down. And, again, enjoy the races as well. But if you just want to pop in for lunch or dinner, you can do that also. You don't have to tie it into a day at the races. You can just enjoy the food, or as you say, some to-go. So that's here at the Clubhouse Racebook. Mm-hmm. We've alluded to it already. You have the facility down in Waterville as well. Tout that a little bit for people also.
Yeah, so Waterville, it's at 310 19th Street. We've been there 19 years. A little smaller than the place here. But we've built a pretty good reputation for being a food place. So people come in for lunch, they come in for dinner. It's very family friendly oriented, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish here as well.
19 years. Do you have? Is it like the Cheers crowd? Is there Norm?
Oh yeah, yeah. We
You've
have.
been around that long.
There's some people that have plaques on chairs for sure.
Haven't been around that long, certainly. Anything else I should hit on that I haven't hit on yet?
Yeah, the big one this Thursday. If you guys haven't come out and you want to come out and try it out, we got 2 tickets to Belmont. We're going to be giving away.
Oh, nice.
We got a promo going on with Miller Lite. We're going to be giving away this cooler. We got a bunch of free swag over here. Free swag from DeCrescenti. So we're teaming up with them. We're going to do bucket specials of Miller Lite. And yeah, you got to be present to win. But it's 2 tickets to the Belmont this weekend. Or I'm sorry, on June 8th. And yeah, we'll be giving those away. So stop on out 4 to 7 on Thursday, and we'll be doing that.
So tickets to the track.
To the track, yes.
Nice. So that's this Thursday. Stop in, and maybe you can pick up some tickets to the track for Belmont Stakes Day, which everybody is over the moon about.
It's all sold out, right?
Yeah. And so, again, if you can't get there, come down here and grab a little food on Belmont Stakes Day, because we have plenty of action happening here as well. But that would be fun to get a couple of tickets. So that's Thursday, promotion day right here, Clubhouse Racebook at Black Bear. Tim, really appreciate your stopping in this morning. And again, congratulations, when you last, I've been a small business owner myself. You last 19 years, you're doing something right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Again, so far it's been very successful here as well. And we're looking forward to the future. Food is great. Give it a big thumbs up. So we invite all of you to stop down, but appreciate the visit this morning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on.
Tim Delisle from Black Bear, our new food vendor here at the Clubhouse Racebook. And again, you are highly recommended to stop by and enjoy. Great menu, really good food. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. Seth Merrow in the studio. Been a fun morning. Anthony Stabile. And again, kind of a swan song. Hopefully we can grab him again. I'm sure, still be involved in the game, Jon White, but it was fun to have him on this morning to kind of have a typical fun Jon White interview. But we'll wrap it up. I'll be back in about an hour and a half or so, OTB Live for a Sunday afternoon. So we'll see you then.
Awesome.
We'd like to thank Woodbine for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Woodbine open now through December, featuring great racing, including the King's Plate coming up in August, Turf Champions Day with the Woodbine Mile in September, and much, much more. Woodbine Racing, great racing north of the border.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.
Race at Chutoxeter. Here's the commentary.
Going down towards fence number 1, it is Johnny B.